Good morning, Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church. Can I hear y'all make a joyful noise? That's all right, y'all. I needed that this morning. I barely got here. There was a tire thing, and so I'm already feeling up here this morning. But I'm so grateful to see all of you gorgeous humans who showed up and showed out to continue to liberate love and radiate kindness into this world. It is important that you showed up this morning. Gathering together in community is an act of rebellion against isolation and hopelessness. And what do we say? I believe you, Diana. My goodness. All right, folks, we're gonna sing it out today. So why don't we rise in body and or spirit and sing our opening hymn? I never remember which hymn we're singing at what time. 44. We're singing hymn number 44. Rise in body and or spirit and sing it out with me.
Unitarian Universalism is a faith that is spiritually alive, value-centered, and radically... Unitarian Universalism is a faith that is spiritually alive, value-centered, and radically inclusive. We begin each service by kindling a flaming chalice. Those who came before us lit this flame as a beacon of welcome to those in need of a place of sanctuary and belonging. We strive to continue that legacy here today. We kindle this flame with words from our mission statement. Please repeat after me. We light this flame, to grow in spirit, knowledge, and action. Accept and challenge one another. And to support each other in times of joy and need. And for the announcements, of course, you can find ways our community works for love and justice on the back of your order of service. A few highlights are, first of all, well, there's a congregational meeting after the service today, so stay and let your voice be heard. On October 16th at Northwest UU, the pastoral care team will be hosting a How to Have a Pastoral Conversation training so we can better support each other as a community. October 22nd, Eli will be featuring a Trans 101 event at Christ Church Cranbrook. Come and ask all the questions you want. You will need to register. There's more information in the newsletter. And Reverend Julie will be teaching an earth-based spirituality class based on the pagan wheel of the year. The first class in which will take place on October 31st, which is Samhain. More info will come in your newsletter.
Tom, it's good. Can you hear me? I think you can hear me, but only because I'm loud. Hello? Can Zoom hear me? There we go, there we go. Oh, Tom, that's good stuff to know. But the most important thing to know is that no matter what you believe or who you love,
where you're from or what identities you hold,
with all of your joy and gifts,
with all your pain and history,
you are welcome and wanted here. Come, let us worship together. Now, let us enter into a time of centering with the joy of music. We will come out singing.
may we now all embrace childlike wonder with a story for all ages.
Good morning. I have a story for all ages, but before we do that, I wonder if any of the children or their teachers have a joy or shower they would like to share with us.
There we go. Here's what we're gonna do. I have a fabulous piece of technology. You ready? on up here, Brooklyn.
Hi. So, on the 21st, the 20th, on a Monday, I'm going to karate, and I have a test, and I'm going to be breaking a board and getting my yellow and my white belt.
Wow.
Yesterday was my birthday.
Happy birthday! Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear little one. Sweetie, I can't tell the Marcotts apart. I'm sorry, sweetie, what's your name? Maple. Happy birthday, Maple.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Sorry.
At school, it was the book fair.
Whoa.
And I had a cool book from school that you could keep.
Excellent. Thank you, Jojo.
And I got a cool pencil that had cats on it.
Sounds like a good day.
Oh, wait a minute.
Maybe not necessary, Joe.
Check, check.
I always liked book fairs. I'm a retired kids librarian, so that's a great thing for kids to get books to take home. So this story is a modern parable known as the tale of the two villagers and the woven tapestry. It's a good reminder about how we sometimes can't fully recognize and welcome what others value and enjoy because we are too focused on what we personally value and enjoy. Once upon a time, nestled in a valley between rolling hills, lived two villagers, Alara and Finn. Alara lived in a small, close-knit community where everyone knew each other and they shared the bounty of their gardens and the warmth of their hearths. Finn, however, was a newcomer who had arrived seeking a place to call home, but he was shy and unsure about how to approach the villagers. One day, the village decided to weave a great tapestry to represent their community. Each villager contributed a thread of their own, creating colorful and intricate designs. Alara, as one of the most respected weavers, was initially hesitant when Finn approached, holding a simple, uncolored thread. She saw his thread as plain and perhaps not worthy of their vibrant creation. However, the village elder, wise and full of compassion, noticed Alara's hesitation. He said to her, "Alara, the strength of our tapestry lies not in the brightness of each thread, but in the way they are woven together. Every thread, no matter how simple it may seem, contributes to the whole. To widen our circle is to strengthen the bond." Inspired by the elder's words, Alara welcomed Finn and his thread. She helped him weave it into the tapestry, placing it beside a brilliant red thread and a shimmering gold thread. As the tapestry grew, the villagers saw how Finn's simple thread, when interwoven with the others, added depth and texture, enhancing the beauty of the whole. Finn, feeling included and valued, shared his knowledge of cultivating new herbs, enriching the village's gardens and bringing new flavors to their meals. What I love about this story is how the villagers finally saw Finn's thread not as something strange, but as something that could enrich their communities. Sometimes it can be hard to welcome and make room for things or people that are different. So as we head down to our classrooms to explore this some more, let's remember, children and adults alike, that True strength and richness comes from welcoming everyone into the circle, creating a tapestry of life that is vibrant and whole.
Okay, this is the point in the service where I'm supposed to kindle a second flame for the children to take back to their class. And I realized, yes, I realized that, yes, we were in trying to get paper things to print, we forgot. So is that really safe? I thought maybe we could just, if we imagine, all the children imagine, everybody could carry a chalice. Oh, we're going to do that? Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Just symbolically. So please join me in singing to the children, those who are here, those in the world, and our inner children, the words that are in the, I think we're in the order of service. Or they're on the, each child that's born, the morning star rises, brightens to you. Each child that's born, the morning star rises, sings to the universe, you are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandmother's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. Each month we share our play with a community partner. This month the partner is Warriors on Wheels. Warriors on Wheels of Metropolitan Detroit is a grassroots nonprofit advocacy organization of people with disabilities for people with disabilities. Its mission is to advocate, connect, and empower in raising consciousness to combat discrimination against people with disabilities by creating systemic change. All undesignated donations will be split between Warriors on Wheels and our congregation. A link to give virtually is posted in the Zoom chat. No matter what you contribute to the church, be it funds or time or simply the generous presence of your spirit, know that we are so grateful for your gifts. Let's step into gratitude together.
I like me a good manifesto. What about you? I like me a good manifesto. And at one point, the most controversial piece of literature in the country was the Humanist Manifesto. It came out in 1917, and I have to say, the first time that I read it, I was like, that's what that says. And I think sometimes some of this source material that gets talked about so much, it bears going back and reading the original words. But it was rather long, so I couldn't read all of it. But they had these 15 statements that they made. Some of them were a little redundant. So I picked a couple of these statements, a few of these statements, and I thought, what if we read some of the statements in the Humanist Manifesto, and we Unitarian Universalists, proprietors of humanism, decided what we thought about them. So I'm going to read a statement, and I want you all to be like, yeah, or like, no, out loud, okay? We're going to be the peanut gallery, because the thing that would happen in the meeting houses is people would come out and say opinions, and people from the balconies would be like, here, 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 here. They'd be like, no, boo, hiss. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that. When we did this in Detroit, it was controversial. People had different opinions. Shocking. Okay, ready? Humanism believes that man is part of nature, and that 1917, lots of man and he, right? And that he has emerged as a result of a continuous process. Yeah, I like that. It's good. It's good. Holding an organic view of life, humanists find that their traditional dualism of mind and body must be rejected. Yes! I mean, you can have your own opinions, but I don't think they're separate. We all know our body does better when we find time to meditate. But, hey, we can say yes if we want to. We are a collective. Pluralism is one of our deals, right? All right. Humanism asserts that the nature of the universe depicted by modern science makes unacceptable any natural or cosmic guarantees of human values. We know what Steve thinks. I would say boo. I don't think it's unacceptable. We are convinced that the time has passed for theism, deism, modernism, and the several varieties of new thought. Oh, that one was controversial. Okay. Religion consists of those actions, purposes, and experiences which are humanly significant. Nothing human is alien to the religious. Yeah, I like that. That's one of my favorite ones, yeah. In the place of the old attitudes involved in worship and prayer, the humanist finds his religious emotions expressed in a heightened sense of personal life. Not everyone agrees. That's okay. All right. These are the last two. They're kind of bangers. I gave away what I thought. Believing that religion must work increasingly for joy in living, religious humanists aim to foster the creative man and to encourage achievements that add to the satisfaction of life. Amen, yes. All right, last one. It's kind of long. Bear with me. Humanists are firmly convinced that the existing inquisitive and profit-motivated society has shown itself to be inadequate, and that a radical change in methods, controls, and motives must be instituted. A socialized and cooperative economic order must be established to the end that the equitable distribution of the means of life is possible. The goal of humanism is a free and universal society in which people voluntarily and intelligently cooperate for the common good. Humanists demand a shared life and a shared world. That's ironic, Alex. Yeah, it's good though. It's good. All right. That was the Humanist Manifesto. We're going to take a little interlude to sing together, and then I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Let's rise in body and our spirit and sing number 2, Down the Ages We Have Trod. We're going to sing verses 1 through 5, because that's enough. Please be seated. So see, that song says it right there. We don't all have to agree on what God is or isn't. But in the 1980s, we almost did. In the 1980s, the Pew Research Center did a study of Unitarian Universalism and found that more than 80% of Unitarian Universalists identified themselves as humanist. Can you imagine getting 80% of Unitarian Universalists to agree about anything? And yet, in 1980, over 80% in the 1980s, over 80% of Unitarian Universalists identified themselves as humanist. In 2003, another survey was taken, and this time less than 40% of Unitarian Universalists identified themselves as humanist. Listen, you guys, there's actually so much more that I could say about that, but I'm not going to. That's a different sermon. It's several different sermons and one blown up search process, but we'll talk about it later. So, less than 40% of Unitarian Universalists identified themselves as humanist, but still more than 60% said that they didn't believe in any kind of supernatural power. Recently, like during COVID when they were bored, the UUA did their own survey of their people and found that a majority of Unitarian Universalists are now open to believing in something supernatural outside of what we can witness, and that almost no one my age or younger defines themselves as humanist anymore. So what happened? What happened? Why was there just this sudden shift? I guess it wasn't sudden, but in religious terms, like 1980 to 2020 isn't that long of a span of time. What happened? Well, maybe it would be good if we actually defined what humanism is and talked about how it became so prevalent in Unitarian Universalism. We down for that? All right, the best definition I've ever heard of humanism is that humanists are atheists who define what they do believe rather than what they don't believe. So an atheist says, I don't believe in God. A humanist says, I believe that human life is central to the experience of all that there is and prime in what I think is ultimately important. See the difference? Okay, so a humanist is an atheist that defines what they do believe rather than what they don't. And even coming to that point of being able to define that I believe that humanity is central to what we're doing here on the planet, and it's not all about some afterlife or some deity, that was a really big deal. It was a really big deal. And there's this one guy, of course, it wasn't just one guy, it's never one guy, but it's easier to tell the story of one guy, right? And his name was John Dietrich, and he grew up Dutch Reform in Pennsylvania. And he went to New York and worked for a family that was Unitarian, and they went to All Souls Unitarian Church in New York, and he was like, this is kind of great. Unitarians were going through their whole like transcendentalist revival at the time and moving themselves out of the necessity of like the Bible and the divinity of Jesus as the center of their faith. And he was like, this is cool. I like church. You get to think about what you feel and how you want to be in the world. I like it. I think I'm going to go to seminary. And his parents were like, cool, we will send you to seminary, but you have to be a Dutch Reformed minister. And he's like, well, whatever, what's the difference? So he goes to seminary and he starts learning. You know what he started learning. And he's like, I'm really, really struggling with this. He's going to his mentors, and his mentors are like, we all struggle with the theology. You just got to get through it, make your statements of faith, find a church, and you can talk to them about whatever you want. And he's like, cool, I guess I can do that. So he gets through, he kind of like mumbles when he has to say the Nicene Creed at his ordination. There are actually stories about him mumbling. I wonder what he actually said. And he finds a church. He finds a church in Pennsylvania, and he starts preaching to them. And not only does he start preaching them new and radical things, like Jesus wasn't a Messiah, he was a martyr. Like he didn't die for our sins of empire and colonialism, but because of them. He starts preaching that, and he changes everything else too. He takes time-honored prayers and replaces them with modern poetry. He played Baroque music. I know. It was wild. He started doing all of these things differently. And suddenly, people started flocking to his church. He tripled the church attendance in the first year. And before you get any ideas, he didn't have Netflix to compete with, okay? He tripled church attendance in the first year. People were like, this is amazing. But like the old guard in the church was like, you may not, sir. We are going to stop coming. And he's like, I don't need your money anymore. I got all these people. We are doing this thing. We are reforming the church. And so they all left. And he kept reforming, and he kept talking about how like the Bible wasn't the center of truth and that we could feel truth in our hearts. And then like the whole town was like, this looks really bad on us. We have to do something about it. And so the church itself stepped in and said, if you don't step down, we're going to publicly try you for heresy. And who wants to do that, right? An entire big spectacle on the town square. And so they assumed that he would quit. But see, the thing is, John Dietrich, he was really charismatic and really intelligent and really stubborn. And he decided that he was going to go through with the trial and defend himself and his beliefs publicly. And of course, they defrocked him. But a Unitarian minister heard him defending himself, and they called the AUA, probably not on the phone, and said, hey, listen, we ought to offer this guy fellowship. We ought to offer this guy fellowship because we went through this whole transcendentalist thing. He's not saying anything we don't believe. And he really knows what he's talking about. He says it succinctly, we should offer this guy fellowship. So they did. They did this sort of unprecedented thing where they like wrote him a letter and offered him fellowship without coming in and vetting him. And so John Dietrich became a Unitarian minister, and he found a church in Minneapolis, and he started growing that church. And then he started mentoring other ministers, and they started growing churches, and he had a particularly close relationship with this young man named Curtis Reese. And one day, Curtis Reese was like, look, we're nibbling around the edges of this. I think I'm just going to write a sermon that says everything I think we're saying blatantly about how human experience should be the primacy of all religion and not some divine being. I'm going to write it. And so he writes it out and he hands it to John Dietrich, and John Dietrich's like, this is an amazing sermon, but I think the title needs work, because he was calling it Implications of Democratic Process in Religious Thought. He's like, that's not the most catchy or informative title. I think what you're saying here is that religion is about humanity. What if you just called the sermon Humanism? And the term was coined. And the next year, Dietrich and Reese got together with 30 other people that were thought leaders at the time, and they wrote the Humanist Manifesto. There were 32 original signers to the Humanist Manifesto. 15 of them were Unitarian Universalist. And they said, we live in a world where we have to take ownership over the way that society is working. We have to care for each other here on earth in this life. And we're spending too much time worrying about what some being we don't know that we all believe in, and some of us are sure we don't, is going to judge us for. So we need to take care of each other here on earth and have a principled faith that is cooperative and democratic. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Like, how amazing. And in the face of the day where like that wasn't on offer, right? Like dogmatic oppressive faith was like pretty much all you were gonna get. And there was this brilliant, bold statement saying we can do better as human beings and we can do it on our own. That's kind of amazing, right? So I think that's why 80% of Unitarian Universalists in 1980 considered themselves humanist. So then why did that drop off? I think there's a couple of reasons. All right, bear with me. I'm going to say it out loud. When I was growing up Unitarian Universalist, the humanists were not the people that said yes to possibility and that we can do different things better. When I was growing up, the humanists were always the people that said no. No to everything. No, you can't sing that hymn. It says a word in it I don't approve of. No, you can't say that thing in Sunday school. It has a theme that makes me uncomfortable. No, you can't run through the hallways and knock everyone over. Maybe that was everybody. But the humanists were these people, in my experience growing up, that said no. So when I went to seminary, I was sure of two things. One, that I was not going to miss winter, and two, that I was not a humanist. Those were the things I was sure of when I went to seminary. It turns out I was a little bit wrong on both fronts. So I went to seminary and I realized that I really missed seeing the changing of the seasons, and it felt like time wasn't passing. And I was given a seminary advisor and a larger denominational mentor. And both of them were these brilliant women who asked amazing questions and helped me explore what my truth and meaning theologically were. And both of them said they were humanist. And I was like, wait, how is this possible? You're saying yes to, one day I'm coming up with like this weird theology based on like a dream I had. And you're like, maybe that's it, sure, what do you think? And I'm like, but you're telling me also that you're humanist. And they were like, Julie, what is the basis of Unitarian Universalism? What is the basis of our faith? Not like what you're in your like little seminary high figuring out yourself in your own head. What is the basis of everything for all of us? And as I thought about it, I said, it's like the first and seventh principles. We had principles back then. It's like the first and seventh principles. It's the fact that we have, it's the inherent worth and dignity of all people, right? And the interdependent web of all existence. And like, if you want to put some divinity into that web, cool, I do, but like, if you don't, still, it's the interdependent web. We know that that's there, right? We see life cycles, we see intertanglement, we see how we relate to each other. And she's like, yeah, that's like humanism. And I was like, what? And they were like, no, I mean, the basis of religion for years and years and years have been, what is the form and shape of God? And now we said, cool, think about that if you want, add all the strings to the tapestry that are shiny, but we need this one string that says that God can't mess with the human experience, or it's not a good theology. I was like, whoa. I never even thought about the fact that human experience was the basis of our religion, because nothing different had ever been presented to me. It was just in my blood and my bones that ethical living and care for one another was the primacy of all religion and faith. And it turns out that's not true. I went through life and I started having these experiences. I had all of these experiences at the Mayo Clinic when I worked there for a year. And I had these different experiences, like when I went to work at the church in Brighton and went to hang out with the ministers in Livingston County. Those were some experiences. I even had some experiences in the church in Brighton, which made me really think about how I defined myself, because now I'm like, yeah, I'm a humanist. I'm other things too, but I'm definitely humanist. I think we all kind of are, right? A little bit at our core, maybe not, we can talk about it. But, so I had this experience in Brighton. And let me tell you something about the church in Brighton. The church in Brighton is like, especially in 2016 when I got the job, they're like this little blue dot in the middle of a sea of red. The church in Brighton is like the only place you can go and express yourself as liberal without people looking sideways at you. People used to tell me in Brighton that I reminded them of Sarah Palin and they thought they were complimenting me, right? So like that was what we were dealing with. And one day, when I got the job, they hadn't had a UU minister for years and years and years. They had had a woman who was ordained by the Humanist Association. And I was like, this is brilliant. I'm going to preach UU stuff to them, right? So I'm going to tell them my call story for the first sermon. And for the second sermon, I'm going to do a whole church history thing. And like, there was a significant population of Jewish folks there. And I started in September, and they were like, we want a Rosh Hashanah High Holidays service. I'm like, got it, third sermon. Okay, and the fourth one, I'm going to talk about God and what I think that means. Brilliant first 4 sermons, we're going to get to know each other. After those 4 sermons, this woman came into my office and she was like, hi, you're new, so I want to tell you who we are a little bit and discuss what we do here. I was like, okay, come on in, let's talk. And she gets out a notebook. And in it, she had written down everything I had done wrong and said wrong. But here's the thing. She didn't write concepts down. She didn't want to talk to me about belief systems. She wasn't interested in what I meant. She had written individual words. These words you may not say from the pulpit. So for the first sermon, she had an issue with me using the word calling. And I was like, well, it was in the context of, and she's like, I wasn't there, I didn't see it, but that just was inappropriate. It's like, okay, can we move on to a sermon you did see then and talk about that? And she goes, sure. The second sermon, not okay. It was riddled with words like Jesus, God, salvation, sin, Bible. I was like, right, I was preaching about how the church moved away from all of those things theologically. Like, can't say them. I'm not a UU. I don't care about UU history. You can't say, we'll shut down. I'm like, okay. She's like, the third sermon, you just talked a lot about atonement. I'm like, it was a high holidays service. I, and she was like, and the fourth one I couldn't even go to because it had the word God. And I was like, okay, all right, this conversation is not going the way that either of us want it to. What do you want me to preach on? You are here because you're getting something out of this community, and I want to speak to you. What do you want me to preach on? You name it, I will preach it. She's like, really? It's like, yes. And she leaned across the table and she goes, I want you to preach on Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion. And I was like, bet. All right, I got to read it first. So I downloaded the audiobook because my trip to Brighton was like 42 minutes long, 39 if the driver was starting. And I know. And so I listened to the audiobook. I'm really glad I listened to the audiobook because he read the audiobook. And I got to hear his tone. And it was really interesting because he was saying all of these things I really actually agreed with. But at the end of every sentence, it felt like there was this challenge. Like he would say something I agreed with and then go, come at me, bro. And I'd be like, wow, why? Like, can we calm down a little bit? Like he would say these things like, religious people should not get privileges beyond what secular people get. I'm like, yeah. We should not teach children that they are inherently sinful. I'm like, yeah, that's true. I agree with you. There are forms of morality outside of religion. Yeah, yes, that is true. Do you need pastoral care? What's going on? Like, can we talk? He goes on in the book to describe my actual favorite thing, my favorite chapter in the book is the chapter where he describes how God does not exist. Like, he's like, this is proof about how God can't exist. And he is a biologist. And he had this beautiful Darwinian summary about how the creationist God could not exist. It was a banger. I learned so much. He has a beautiful way with words, and I don't have any theological issue with saying that the creationist God does not exist. So I'm just getting a science lesson and enjoying it, right? Then he goes on to the second chapter where he's talking about, or maybe it's not the second chapter, I don't know. The second chapter I paid attention to, which was, that I remember, that caught me. I read the whole thing. Which was non-harmful religion. And you can see why this perked me. Can religion be non-harmful? And the thing he decides to go in deep on is the Nicene controversy. The Nicene controversy was a church council in the 300s where we basically decided if we were going to be Unitarian or Trinitarian. Like, and when I say we, I mean like Christianity and the Western world. And like Unitarians lost that one in the end. And so there's all of this literature and scholarship about Trinitarian theology and very little literature and scholarship about Unitarian theology. They burned a lot of it, yeah. Except my seminary advisor was one of the very few working historians in Unitarian Universalism, so I got to see PDFs that she took on her phone of like scribblings in church basements, or the oral history of the town historian passed down from Transylvania for 1,000 years. She's one of the few people that's actually preserving this history, and I got to know about it, and Richard Dawkins didn't. And it was really clear. He wrote this book with the amount of knowledge that you can gain from the Wikipedia page. He was going all in on a subject that he had no historical, theological, or cultural grounding for. And I was like, what would cause an intelligent person to do that? There is nothing that could make me write a book on biology, right? Like, what would cause an intelligent, educated, well-reasoned human being to write a book on something that they did not have expertise in? And then he went on to the next phrase about his country abbot. When he was younger, there was this man that seemed unharmful, and he was puttering around the whatever you call the parish in England. And I was like, that sounds nice. I'd like to putter more. And he's describing these warm, fuzzy feelings toward this man and the community. And then he's like, but they lied to us. They lied to us. They told us we had salvation and we didn't. They told us that there was a guarantee for our lives and there wasn't. He was in so much pain. And I was like, that's pain. That's what could cause you to see harmful, and I'm cut off, and none of it is okay. Each was publicly deep. Curtis Reese grew up Baptist, and when he converted to Unitarian, his parents wrote him a letter that said she would rather die than become a Unitarian because your soul is forfeit. And that woman with the notebook, she barely escaped a tradition that told her that there was something so wrong with her that she couldn't function as a female outside of the home in this world and still be an ethical person. And then suddenly I started thinking about the experiences I had in Mayo Clinic. The woman I had to go with who was being transferred in the middle of the night from the Catholic hospital to the Methodist hospital in Minnesota winter. The baby that she was grieving losing, evacuated from her womb in the Catholic hospital. I thought about sitting with a man who was dying, and as a peace that passed understanding filled, a priest burst in and started screaming at him about confession. I thought about all of the panels that I was put on because I was clergy. There were ethical panels trying to take control over the lives and bodies of mostly Black, poor, and trans people. And I thought, yeah, this wounding is real. And suddenly, this image that I'd had in my head of the humanist standing in front of me and blocking me and saying no to everything beautiful I wanted to get to, that image changed. It changed all my humanist forebearers turning around and protecting me from the slings and arrows of an oppressive God that never got to wound me because they stood in the way of that wounding. The people that were able to say, I will risk my very soul to speak truth and freedom into the world, made it possible for us to have a faith based on what we know and how we want to be in this world. And that's the most brilliant, beautiful theological shifts in the history of theology. And I'll stand on that every day my humanist theist self will. Here's the thing. I want to do two things. Thank my humanist forebearers. You don't know how much pain you saved me. You don't know how much pain you saved me. You don't know how much pain you saved everyone my age growing up in my religious classrooms that were allowed to explore and be told that we were whole and worthy just as we are and that life on this earth is precious and worth living. Thank you for that. It was brave, hard, and I'll never know the pain that you had to go through. I'll never know it because of you. So thank you. Martha, you'll thank Bob, right? Okay. I want one more thing, though. I want to ask this, honestly. Because everything in that manifesto that we all agreed to was about life and human beings, right? And the things we didn't know if we agreed to were the parts where it said, so we shall not believe anything else. So I want to ask this. You all worked so hard to make sure that I could consider an unwounded God. Let me consider it. Let me consider it, because here's the thing, my God, it's not sentient or anthropomorphic. It doesn't have a gender. It doesn't have an ideology. My God doesn't have a face, and it doesn't even have a name. I'm just using that shorthand because it's convenient. And we can use many other things because I also understand that it's wounding. But the only reason that I can open myself up to the earth and the sky, that people my age can say, maybe there's something else and to consider it, is because you stood in the way of the slings and arrows that allowed that made us be closed. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my humanist, theist heart. Thank you. Blessed be and amen. We're going to end with our hymn, We Would Be One, number 318. Please rise and body your spirit. If you would all remain in whatever position makes you comfortable, you could stand, you could sit, but this is the time in the service that we're going to turn toward one another. We're going to witness who has come today. You can reach out to one another, you can put your hand on your heart, but this is the time to not face forward, but to turn towards each other. And we will sing to one another. We are whole, we are holy, we are holding one another.
Okay. Please repeat after me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of hope.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of hope.
The warmth of community.
The warmth of community.
Or the fire of commitment.
Or the fire of commitment.
These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We are whole, we are holy, we are holding one another. to put the W in parentheses there because holy could mean we are part of a whole. And that is intrinsically true, basically, from the bottom of our faith. The humanists made it so. And least the new age of Unitarian Universalists, who isn't even me anymore, become the curmudgeonly people who say no to things. I would like to end our service with the words of John Dietrich, who I think few could argue with. If the world went humanist, there would be recognition of the essential unity of mankind. We would realize that there flows through the whole human race one life, one blood. We would all march together toward a common purpose, common ideal, realizing that what hurts one hurts all. And to that I say, blessed be and amen. Go in peace, return in love. Sing one last time. We are whole. We are whole.